At 18, my mom made me cancel my birthday because my brother felt left out. So I left, started from nothing, and built a real life. Years later, after seeing I was happy, he showed up furious, demanding my husband, my daughter, and my house should be his. Hey Reddit, not sure if this really fits here, but I've been thinking about sharing something that's been sitting in my head for a while. It's about what happened when I turned 18, or more accurately, what didn't happen, and how that one night ended up changing everything about my life and my family. It's not some wild movie plot, just real stuff that still feels unreal when I think back on it. You ever realize you were the responsible one in your family and it wasn't a compliment? That's basically my childhood summed up. My dad bailed when I was 6. My little brother Seth was 4, so he doesn't even remember having a dad. I do, though. I remember the sound of the front door slamming and my mom saying he'll come back when he calms down. Spoiler, he never did. After that, my mom started calling me the woman of the house, which apparently meant doing chores, being quiet, and not getting in her way while she spoiled Seth into a miniature dictator. Everything was, he's just sensitive, or, you know how Seth gets. I was told to be mature more times than I was told, good job. I remember one Christmas when I was 9. Grandpa had mailed us gifts. One for me, one for Seth. Mine was this cool RC truck I'd wanted for months. Seth got some superhero action figure he'd been begging for. It was perfect for like 3 minutes. Then Seth saw my truck and decided he wanted it. He started wailing, full meltdown mode. Mom rushed in like someone died. Seth, sweetie, what's wrong? I want Frances's toy. She got the better one. I said no, obviously. Grandpa got us both what we asked for, but Mom gave me that look, the one that always meant I was about to lose something. Frances, honey, can you just share? Be mature. No, Mom, it's mine. He got his. Then Seth screamed louder, and that was it. She snatched it from my hands and shoved it at him. Here, fine, Seth, take it. Frances, stop being selfish. I remember standing there holding nothing, watching my brother play with both toys. I asked if I could at least have Seth's, since he clearly didn't need two. Seth burst into fake tears again. Mom said I was starting drama and sent me to my room. That's when I learned that in our house, peace always came before fairness. Fast forward 9 years. I'm 18 now, and apparently nothing's changed. It's the night before my birthday. I'd picked up an extra shift at the auto shop to pay for a small chocolate cake and a cheap pizza. Nothing fancy, just something that felt like mine. I walked in with the box, feeling weirdly proud of myself. Seth's on the couch, glued to his phone. What's that? My cake, I said. He frowned, like I'd just insulted him. You're really doing all that for yourself? Yeah, crazy concept, right? Celebrating my birthday. He rolled his eyes. It's not fair. You always get to do everything first. Seth, it's called being born 2 years earlier. That set him off. It's just stupid that you get to be an adult before me. Mom! Here we go. Mom came out of the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. What's going on now? Seth crossed his arms, putting on that fake victim voice. She's rubbing it in my face that she's turning 18 and I'm not. I looked at her, waiting for the obvious response. Something like, Seth, that's life. But no, Mom sighed. Frances, do you have to flaunt it? Flaunt what? Existing. She gave me the disappointed mom look. You know how sensitive your brother is. Maybe just skip the cake this year. Okay, be mature about it. There it was. The magic phrase that made every unfair thing sound reasonable. Be mature. You're serious? It's just one birthday. You're an adult now. Seth's still my baby. Seth smirked from the couch, already over it, like he won something again. Something in me clicked off right then. I didn't yell, didn't argue, just stood there with that stupid cake in my hands, realizing this was never going to change. I set the cake on the counter and walked to my room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even sigh. In my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the crack in the ceiling I used to trace when I couldn't sleep as a kid. I could hear them downstairs. Seth laughing again. Mom chatting with him like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just told her firstborn daughter her birthday didn't matter. I opened my closet and stared at the old duffel bag on the top shelf. The one I used when we went on the one and only family trip years ago, before Dad left. I pulled it down, dust flying off, like even it had given up on this house. I didn't know exactly where I was going yet. I just knew I was done playing the mature loser in someone else's family circus. I packed slow. Clothes, a few documents, cash I'd been saving from my part-time job. When I zipped the bag, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like freedom with a handle. Downstairs, the laughter had turned into the sound of the TV. I stood at my door for a long moment listening. Then I whispered to myself, "Be mature, right?" and smiled. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I just waited for the house to go quiet enough to disappear. I could hear Seth snoring from his room, that obnoxious, heavy sleep of someone who never worried a day in his life. Mom's bedroom light flicked off around midnight, and that was my signal. The duffel bag sat on the floor by my bed, half open with the essentials: clothes, some cash, my phone charger. Leaving wasn't about the birthday. That was just the final nudge after years of being the backup character in my own story. When I was 13, I joined the basketball team at school. We were nobodies, but somehow we clawed our way to the county finals. I played like my life depended on it. Maybe it did. We won. And for once, Mom actually looked proud. She even threw a tiny celebration at home. Balloons, pizza, the whole deal. I remember sitting there smiling, thinking maybe things were finally changing. Then Seth started crying. He said it wasn't fair that everyone's proud of Francis and not me. He was 11. Instead of telling him to calm down, Mom hugged him like he was the one who just won the game. "It's okay, baby. You'll have your moment." Then she turned to me and said, "Let's tone it down, okay? We don't want him feeling left out." The next morning, the balloons were gone. She said she took them down because they were too much. After that, no more celebrations. No birthdays, no achievements, nothing. Seth's feelings were the only thing that ever got celebrated. Back in the present, I stood there staring at my packed bag. Every second felt heavier, like the air itself was holding me back. I slipped on my hoodie, the one with paint stains from the summer job I did 2 years ago, and took a last look around my room. The posters, the cracked window, the dent in the wall from when Seth threw my basketball at me. All of it just memories of me playing peacekeeper while Mom called me mature for staying quiet. I turned off the light, opened the door slowly, and stepped into the hallway. The house creaked like it was tattling on me. I froze, listening. Nothing. Just the hum of the fridge and the distant ticking of the living room clock. At the bottom, I grabbed my truck keys off the hook and looked toward the kitchen. The stupid chocolate cake was still on the counter, the one I didn't get to eat. I scraped off a bite with my finger, whispered, "Happy birthday" to me, and walked out. The night air hit me like a slap, cold, sharp, and free. My old pickup sat under the streetlight, a dented relic with more rust than paint, but it was mine. I loaded the bag into the passenger seat and climbed in. I glanced back at the house one last time, that same house where I'd spent 18 years playing second place. Every light was off. Nobody was coming to stop me. I didn't know where I was going, just that anywhere else was better than there. I drove until the neighborhood turned into open highway. I didn't feel sad, just hollow, like I'd already left long before my body did. By 3 a.m., I pulled into the parking lot of my buddy Ben's house. He lived across town, the kind of guy who always said, "Call me if you ever need a place." The kind you never think you'll actually call. I texted him anyway. "You awake?" "It's 3 a.m., dude. What's up?" "Can I crash at yours for a bit?" "Garage door's open. Couch is free." That's why he was my best friend. No questions, no judgment. I parked quietly, grabbed my duffel, and slipped inside through the side door. His dog lifted its head, gave one lazy wag of the tail, and went back to sleep. The couch was cold, but it was mine for the night. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon. Ben's mom, the kindest woman on earth, just smiled when she saw me. "Morning, Francis. You hungry?" I nodded, voice cracked. "Yeah, a bit." She didn't ask why I was there. She didn't need to. She just slid a plate of eggs and toast in front of me like it was the most normal thing in the world. Ben sat across from me, hair a mess, yawning. "So you really did it, huh?" "Yeah," I said, chewing slowly. "Guess I finally grew up." He grinned. "About time." For the first time in years, I laughed. Not out of sarcasm, not to deflect, just a real laugh. It felt strange, like remembering a language I'd forgotten. There was guilt, yeah, but there was peace too. Nobody was calling me selfish for existing. Nobody was asking me to be mature, just quiet, freedom, and breakfast that actually tasted like it belonged to me. That was the first real meal of my life, and I didn't even realize it yet. I stayed on Ben's couch for a week before I found a room for rent through one of his relatives. The place was basically a walk-in closet with a sink that dripped and a mattress that smelled faintly of wet cardboard. But it had a door that locked, and that was enough. By day, I filled out job applications like it was my new religion. Most places didn't even call back. Finally, one warehouse on the industrial side of town said they needed a woman for graveyard shifts, moving boxes, loading pallets, the usual grunt work. The pay was garbage, but I didn't hesitate. They said I could start the next night. That first shift nearly killed me. 12 hours of nonstop lifting, carrying, stacking, sweating under buzzing fluorescent lights. The air smelled like oil and dust. My hands were raw by the time I clocked out. But when the supervisor handed me that first crumpled check a week later, even if it wasn't much, I felt something I'd never felt before. Pride. Every dollar was mine. No one could pay it or guilt me for earning it. Nights blurred into weeks. My room became a routine. Instant noodles, cold showers, the hum of the mini fan that worked only on its medium setting. Sometimes I'd stare at the ceiling thinking about how weirdly peaceful it was, even with nothing around me. No yelling, no guilt trips, no walking on eggshells so Seth didn't cry. The only noise that tried to drag me back came from my phone. Mom called every day at first. I ignored the first few. Then came the voicemails. "Francis, this isn't funny. You scared your brother. I can't believe you'd abandon your family like this. You think you're better than us now?" Same script, different tone. None of them asked if I was okay. It was all about how I made them feel. Eventually, the calls slowed, then stopped. I waited a few days, expecting another round of guilt, but silence was all I got. That's when it clicked. They never really wanted me there. They just wanted control. Winter rolled in faster than I expected. I didn't own a proper coat, so I layered hoodies like armor and kept working through the cold. The warehouse heaters barely worked, and some nights, the only thing keeping me warm was adrenaline and bad coffee. One morning around 4 a.m., I was heading home after a shift when my truck sputtered and died at a stoplight. I tried restarting it. Nothing. The engine just coughed and gave up like it was tired too. I sat there for a minute, fog from my breath clouding the windshield, and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Mom's number. I hadn't called her in months. For a second, I imagined her answering. Dramatic sigh, fake worry, then the inevitable, "See what happens when you try to do everything on your own?" That was enough. I dropped my phone on the seat, stepped out, and started walking. 5 miles in freezing air. My breath came out in clouds, and the tips of my fingers went numb. My shoes were soaked from the slush, and every few minutes I told myself I'd stop at the next gas station. But I didn't. I kept walking. Somewhere between mile 2 and 3, my anger turned into focus. Each step felt like me hammering that promise deeper into my bones. I'd never go back, not even for help, not even to prove a point, just never again. By the time I reached my apartment, the sun was coming up. I collapsed onto the mattress and stared at the ceiling. My whole body ached. But I wasn't mad. I was proud. Proud that I didn't fold the second life got hard. Proud that I walked every damn mile instead of crawling back. That morning, I skipped sleep and went straight to the library. I used one of their ancient computers to sign up for community college night classes. I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I just knew I wanted to keep moving forward. The next few months were a blur of exhaustion and progress. I'd work 10 hours, grab fast food from the dollar menu, then drag myself to a 7 p.m. class about logistics and management. Most nights I'd fight to stay awake, but somehow I passed every exam. People at the warehouse started noticing. The older guys called me college girl as a joke. But when the supervisor needed someone reliable, he called me first. I took every shift I could, saved every extra dollar. On weekends, I fixed the truck myself using parts from the scrapyard. It wasn't pretty, but it ran again, just like me. Sometimes I'd drive out to the old neighborhood at night, park a few blocks away, and just sit there. I never went close enough for them to see me, but I'd watch the lights in the house. Seth's room still glowing late like always. Mom's shadow moving in the kitchen. Nothing had changed. I remember thinking how strange it was that the place that used to feel like a cage now looked so small from the outside. A few months later, I got promoted to shift lead. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was steady. For the first time in my life, I could afford more than noodles. I even bought a proper jacket. Not expensive, but warm. Every payday, I'd fold the check in half and just stare at it for a second before cashing it. Not because it was much, but because it was proof I'd survived without them. No calls, no be mature, no Seth screaming in the background. Just me. And that was enough. 7 years later, that line still ran through my head sometimes when I'd pull into the driveway of my new house after a long shift. The house wasn't big. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, cracked driveway. But it was mine. Every tile, every nail, every drop of sweat that built it had my name on it. I was 25 now, a warehouse supervisor. Yeah, same place I started as the rookie stacking boxes, except now I was the one barking orders and fixing everyone else's screw-ups. The pay wasn't life-changing, but it was solid. I had savings, health insurance, and a fridge full of food that didn't come from a dollar menu. Most nights when I'd pull into that driveway and see the porch light on, I'd smile. Jack always left it on for me. Said it made the place feel warm, like home. He was the kind of man who didn't care about fancy stuff, just effort. He met me back when I was taking night classes, juggling shifts, half dead from work, and somehow decided I was worth sticking around for. We got married when I was 21 at the courthouse with 2 witnesses and no drama, no family, just us. A year later, our daughter, Elle, was born. She looked like him, but had my stubbornness, which is equal parts adorable and terrifying. I'd sit there some nights just watching them, Jack rocking Elle to sleep, and think, nobody can take this from me now. This wasn't luck. This was earned. Built from nothing but my own 2 hands, and the decision to leave behind everything that broke me. By now, Elle was almost 4. All energy and questions, and somehow already better at building things than I was at her age. Then one random afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally I ignore those, but something told me to pick up. Francis, a familiar voice said, "It's your grandpa." I froze. I hadn't heard that voice in years. He sounded older, softer. "Hey," I said carefully. "Didn't expect to hear from you," he chuckled. "Didn't expect a call, to be honest. I just wanted to see how you're doing, kiddo." "I'm good. Real good, actually." There was a pause. "You did the right thing, leaving." That caught me off guard. "Yeah." "I told your mom years ago that spoiling Seth would ruin him. She didn't listen. I even warned her after your dad left that making you the woman of the house wasn't fair. You were a kid, but she never heard me. Too busy protecting Seth from the world." I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window at the yard I'd mowed the day before. I used to think I was crazy for leaving. "You weren't crazy," he said. "You were surviving." That line hit me. Surviving. That's exactly what it was. He sighed. "I'm not calling to drag anyone through the mud. Just wanted to make sure you're okay. I heard bits and pieces. Your mom said you're doing fine, but doesn't talk much about you." "I'm good, Grandpa," I said, smiling slightly. "Got a family now, a daughter." He let out this warm laugh. "A girl, huh? Bet she's smarter than all of us already." "Working on it." "I'm proud of you, Francis. You broke the pattern. That's not easy." We talked another 10 minutes, mostly small stuff. Weather, work, how his knees were shot, but his garden was thriving. When we hung up, I sat there staring at my phone for a while. It was weird. The first time in years, someone from my family reached out without judgment or guilt attached. It didn't fix anything, but it felt good. That night when Jack came home, he had that look like he was planning something. "Hey," he said, "put on something decent. I'm taking you out." I raised an eyebrow. "To where? The fancy gas station down the street?" He smirked. "No, genius. A real restaurant. You deserve it." I almost said no. I hate eating out, but he gave me that look and I caved. We got dressed, dropped Elle off with his sister, and drove into town. The restaurant was one of those nice but not pretentious places. Dim lights, jazz playing, waiters with fake smiles. Jack looked good, and I was just happy to sit with him away from the noise of work. Then, halfway through our meal, I heard a laugh that made my stomach twist. That high-pitched fake laugh I'd grown up with. Mom's. I looked up, and sure enough, 2 tables across, there they were. Mom and Seth. Seth looked about the same, older, taller, but with the same smug face that used to drive me insane. Mom was dressed up like she was auditioning for a midlife crisis commercial, sipping wine and nodding along as Seth talked about something animatedly. Jack followed my gaze. "You okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, just didn't expect to run into old ghosts tonight." Mom hadn't seen me yet. Seth was too busy scrolling on his phone, probably complaining about how hard his day was. For a second, I considered pretending I didn't see them, just finishing dinner, leaving, and never thinking about it again. But part of me, the part that spent 18 years swallowing every insult, every ignored birthday, every forced be mature, wanted to be seen. "I'm not leaving," I said. Jack squeezed my hand under the table, the kind that said, "Whatever happens, I'm with you." I didn't even have time to decide what to do before Seth's voice cut through the room like a broken speaker. "No freaking way," he said loud enough for half the restaurant to turn. "Francis, holy crap, it's actually you." He stood up, grinning, like we were long-lost best friends. Mom turned, eyes widening as she saw me. For a second, her smile almost looked genuine. Then she glanced at Jack, at the nice clothes, at the rings on our hands, and that familiar mix of surprise and guilt flashed across her face. Seth strutted over before I could react. "Wow, look at you. Married, fancy restaurant. Must be nice." I leaned back in my chair. "Hey, Seth, you're still alive. That's cool." He blinked, confused by my calm tone. "Yeah, I'm alive. Mom told me you just got up and left like we didn't matter." "Didn't matter?" I said. "I think that's been my role since birth." Mom winced. "Francis, please, not here." Seth cut her off. "You abandoned us. I had to grow up without my sister because you couldn't handle being part of a family." I let out a short laugh. "Not mean, just tired." "Seth, you were 16 when I left. You didn't need a sister. You needed a leash." A couple people nearby chuckled under their breath. Jack hid his smile behind his water glass. Mom hissed, "Don't start, Francis." "No, Mom," I said, leaning forward. "Let's actually talk, since apparently I'm the villain here. Let's talk about all the times I was told to be mature while Seth got everything he cried for. My canceled birthday because he was jealous. My basketball win you pretended didn't exist because he threw a tantrum. You called that parenting. I called it survival." Seth's face turned red. "You think you're better than us now with your little job and your little family?" "I don't think I'm better," I said calmly. "I just learned to live without expecting fairness." He laughed, but it came out shaky. "You think you can just run away and get rewarded for it?" "Funny," I said. "You think you can sit on your mom's couch for 20 years and get rewarded for it?" His jaw tightened. The table next to us had gone completely silent. Then Seth leaned forward, eyes wild. "I want what you have," he said, voice rising. "You don't deserve it. I want your life. The husband, the daughter, the house, all of it should have been mine." He leaned toward Jack. "You don't want to stay with this loser. Come with me." The words hung there like poison. Even Mom looked stunned. Jack's hand froze in midair. The whole restaurant went quiet except for the low hum of background music. I stood up slowly, chair scraping against the floor. "You want my life, Seth?" I asked quietly. He looked smug, thinking I was about to back down. "Yeah, why should you get it? You left. You don't deserve the good ending." Something in me settled. Not anger, finality. I stepped in close enough for him to see how calm my face was. "Listen to me, Seth. You don't deserve anything because you don't build anything. You whine, you take, you throw tantrums, and you expect the world to bend. You're not a victim. You're just lazy." His eyes went wide. His hands froze midair. "You want a life like mine? Earn it. Stop being a boy. Stop blaming everyone else. And for once in your life, act like you're older than 12. He stumbled back into the table behind him. A couple glasses clinked. A waiter gasped. Seth stood there pale, humiliated, breathing like he'd just run a mile. Mom's voice shook. "Francis, No, Mom, I said, turning to her. You made him this way. You spent years protecting him from consequences, and now look at him. A grown man who thinks he's owed everything. You thought you were being a good mom, but you just broke us both in different ways. For once, she didn't argue. She just looked down, hands trembling, eyes glossy. Maybe she finally saw it. Not the yelling, not the drama, just the truth sitting there between us. Seth muttered something under his breath, then turned and walked out, shoulders slumped. The same way he used to waddle off after losing a toy as a kid. Some things never change. Mom sat back down at her table, quiet. After a long pause, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. She walked over, eyes red but steady, and placed it in front of me. My new number, she said softly. If you ever want to talk. Not for him, for me. I stared at it for a second, then nodded once. Take care of yourself, Mom. Jack reached across the table, his voice low. You okay? I exhaled. Yeah, actually I am. We paid the check and walked out. As the door closed behind us, I glanced through the glass one last time. Mom was still sitting there, staring at the empty seat across from her. For once, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Not because I embarrassed them, but because I didn't let them rewrite history again. The night air felt colder than before, but clean. Jack slipped his hand into mine. So, he said with a grin, still think going out was a bad idea? I smirked. Yeah, totally awful night. He laughed, and we walked to the car, leaving the ghosts right where they belonged. For the next few weeks, life went back to normal, or as normal as it could after a public family meltdown. I didn't think about that night much, at least not during the day, but sometimes when the house was quiet and Elle was asleep, I'd catch myself replaying it. Seth's words, Mom's face, the silence afterward. Then, one evening after work, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it until I saw the message preview. This is your mom. I don't expect a reply, but I wanted to say I'm sorry for all of it. I sat there for a full minute just staring at it. No manipulation, no guilt trip, just words I'd never heard from her before. Jack walked in, drying his hands. You okay? Yeah, I said, still looking at the screen. Just my mom. He came over, reading the message over my shoulder. That's new? Yeah, real new. Going to answer? I thought about it. Not tonight. But the truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about it. For the next few days, every time I picked up my phone, that text sat there like a loose thread I couldn't ignore. 3 days later, another message came. You don't have to talk to me, but I just want you to know I mean it. I know I hurt you. That one hit different. I walked outside, sat on the porch, and before I could overthink it, I dialed her number. She answered before the first ring finished. Francis? Yeah, it's me. Oh, honey, she said, her voice cracking. Thank you for calling. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, years of unspoken things hanging in the air. I didn't call for a fight, I said finally. I know, I'm not here to defend anything. She sighed. I just want to tell you the truth. I was scared. Of what? Of losing Seth. Of failing him. Her voice trembled. When your dad left, Seth was just a baby. He didn't even remember him. I did everything I could to make up for that. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that I had 2 children, not 1. I stayed quiet. I told myself you were strong, she went on, that you didn't need as much attention, that you'd be fine no matter what I did. And that wasn't fair. I made you carry everything so Seth wouldn't have to carry anything. I leaned back against the porch railing, staring at the sunset. You knew what you were doing, though. You saw it. I did, she admitted, and I convinced myself it was love, that protecting him was love. But I wasn't protecting anyone. I was just avoiding guilt. That one hit harder than I expected. I can't change it, she said quietly. I just hope someday you can let me try to do better. It was weird hearing her talk like this. No excuses, no deflection, just honesty. For the first time in my life, she wasn't talking at me. She was talking to me. I don't know what I feel about all this, I said honestly, but thanks for saying it. That's enough for me right now. We hung up not long after, both kind of awkward, like neither of us knew how to end a normal conversation. A week later, she texted again. Can we meet? Just to talk. I'd love to see you. No expectations. Part of me wanted to delete it, pretend it never came. But another part, the part that had built a life without bitterness, said maybe it was time. So I said yes. We met at a small park near the lake on a Saturday morning. Jack came with me, mostly for moral support. And of course, Elle was there too, running around with her toy truck and yelling about ducks. When Mom showed up, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked older, smaller somehow, but calmer. She smiled nervously, clutching her purse like it might float away. "Hi," she said. "Hey." She spotted Elle instantly. "That's her?" "Yeah," I said, "that's Elle." She didn't rush to pick her up or smother her with affection like I half expected. She just stood there watching her laugh as she chased a bird. Her eyes got glassy. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "You're a good mom." "Trying to be," I said. We sat on a bench, awkward silence stretching between us. Jack wandered off with Elle, giving us space. "I've thought about this moment a lot," Mom said after a while. "What I'd say, how you'd react. But I think I just want to sit here for a bit." "That's fine." She nodded, exhaling slowly. "When I saw you at the restaurant, I realized something." "What's that?" "Seth's not the only one I failed. I failed myself too. I spent so long trying to fix what your dad broke that I didn't notice I was breaking you." I didn't know what to say to that. We sat in silence again. Elle came running up, holding a leaf like it was gold. "Mommy, look!" I smiled, took it from her, and ruffled her hair. "That's a good one, Bug." Mom watched us, her expression soft but heavy. "You're really happy, aren't you?" "Yeah," I said, "I am." She smiled faintly. "That makes me happy, too." We didn't hug. We didn't cry. When it was time to go, she just said, "Thank you for letting me see you." I nodded. "Take care, Mom." As I buckled Elle into her car seat, I caught her watching us from the bench, hands folded, shoulders shaking a little. Driving home, Jack asked quietly, "How do you feel?" I thought for a long moment. "Lighter," I said finally. "Not fixed, just lighter." He smiled. "That's a start." And maybe it was. For the first time, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel owed. I didn't feel like that kid who got her Christmas gift stolen. I just felt done carrying the weight. That feeling didn't fade. It grew over the next year. Life didn't magically fix itself, but it got steadier, quieter, realer. Mom started proving she meant what she said. She didn't smother, didn't push, didn't try to rewrite the past. She just showed up when she said she would. Sometimes she'd text, thinking of Elle, or ask if she could stop by to drop off something small, a kid's book or cookies she baked. She told me she started therapy, and I believed her. She never bragged about it, never used it as a weapon to prove she was better. She just talked like a human being for once. And when she came over, she followed every rule we set. No guilt trips, no bringing up Seth unless I asked. Meanwhile, Seth, well, his world didn't fare as well. Grandpa called once and told me he'd moved back in with Mom for a while. Burned through jobs like they were napkins. Got fired twice. Argued with neighbors. Still thought everyone was against him. I didn't feel joy hearing it. Just a quiet confirmation. I'd been right to walk away. Some people never grow until they run out of enablers. Mom eventually made him move out again. She said she couldn't keep cleaning up his messes. Hearing her say that felt surreal, like she'd finally seen the mess she helped create. A few months later, she came to Elle's 5th birthday. She didn't try to play Grandmother of the Year. She stood in the background, took pictures, laughed at Elle's goofy dance moves, and handed her a small box wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a tiny wooden truck, hand-carved, painted blue. "Made it myself," she said. Figured she might like something simple. Elle hugged it like treasure. "Thanks, Nana." The word caught Mom off guard. Her eyes watered, but she didn't make it dramatic. She just smiled and whispered, "You're welcome, sweetheart." That night, after everyone left, I sat outside while Jack cleaned up the last of the cake plates. The yard was quiet, except for the sound of Elle laughing inside, probably still playing with that wooden truck. I thought about everything. That Christmas years ago, the basketball trophy I never got to celebrate, the night I walked out with nothing but a duffel bag and a stubborn heart. It all led here. Jack came out, sat beside me, and leaned his head on my shoulder. "She had a good birthday," he said. "Yeah," I said, "she did." Mom wasn't perfect, but she was trying. And Seth, maybe one day he'd get tired of crashing and start building. Either way, it wasn't my job to save him. This life, the small house, the laughter, the quiet, it was mine. Earned, not inherited. As I stood to go back inside, I looked at Jack and said, "You know, I didn't walk out to hurt them." He smiled softly. "I know." I looked back at the window where Elle was waving her toy truck in the air like a trophy. "I walked out to live," I said. And I did.